on the board, and have everybody spend 1 minute max introducing themselves. If you're just a visitor here the first time, we'd love to meet you. So my name is Carroll Coyote. I'm on the board. I'm the co-chair of our Revolution East Bay. Who would like to go next?
I'm Mark Van Landuit. I'm on the board of Our Revolution East Bay. Very happy to see all of you here, friends and family and heroes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jake Varghese, also on the board of Our Revolution East Bay.
Steve Finch, board of Our Revolution East Bay, and I'm the hero that Mark was referring to.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Mark.
I'm Chris Peoples.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Chris Peoples. I'm not on the board of Our Revolution East Bay, but I am on the board of AC Transit.
All right.
Great, great.
Hi, I'm Wietske Medema, and I'm part of the board of Our Revolution East Bay. So nice to be here.
I'm part of this group too. I do all the graphic content. I'm happy
How
to
did
do
you
it.
get on it?
Oh, I snuck my way in the back door, maybe through a window.
Okay, who's next? We'd like to hear from everybody if they don't mind, and nobody has to say hello.
I'm Eduardo Martinez, council member, Richmond City Council, and soon to be mayor next year.
Soon to be mayor, yes.
All right, we like that.
I'm Laura.
Okay.
I'm Laura Nakamura. I'm a Concord resident and a Concord City Council candidate for November 2022.
All right.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, who else is here? Kabir.
I'm Kabir Kapoor. I'm a RPA or Our Revolution East Bay DSA member.
Okay.
Yeah, active for the last few years here.
Okay, Justine, would you like to say hi?
Hi, Justine Burt, just a really big fan of Mark and Wietke's and of Our Revolution East Bay.
All right, thank you for being here.
Big fan of you too.
Okay, Carla, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Carla West, and just happy to be here.
Okay, Andy?
Hello, I'm Andy Kelley. I'm on the Berkeley Rent Board and a longtime friend of the club.
Okay, Bill?
Couldn't get unmuted. Thank you. I'm just a member of OREB and also currently working as a volunteer for 350 Contra Costa.
All right. Okay, let's see. We have a few more people who've just come in. If they could each just say who they are, and then we'll get moving on. It's just nice to kind of unify and know who we are. You want to start, Gordon?
Yeah, I'm Gordon Miller. I'm from the other side of the Ridgeline Caldecott Tunnel, and I'm the secretary of OREB, and proud to be that.
Okay, Richard, would you like to say hi?
Hey everyone, sure, Carol. I'm sorry, I joined a little late. Are we saying anything in particular?
No, just so we can unify as a group. Just say hi, I'm Richard, I do this.
Sure, perfect. Well, hi everyone, I'm Richard. I live out here in Dublin, California. I've been to a couple of OREB meetings, and I'm excited to hear what some of our invited guests and speakers have to say today.
Okay, moving along. Michelle, would you like to say hello?
Hi, yes, my name is Michelle Simone, and I'm an education commissioner in Pleasant Hill and a member of OR. Happy to be here and really excited about the panelists today.
Okay, thank you. Joaquin?
Oh, sorry. Joaquin McLean. I'm a member since 2016 and also Wellstone Democratic Club member. And yeah, happy to join. And I'm sort of doing a little little bit of everything. I'm a printer by trade. And still have a union shop for button stickers and printing.
Okay, we gotta do this real quick now. Susan, do you want to say hi?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Susan from Richmond, and I'm the office co-coordinator of the Richmond Progressive Alliance. And I'm happy to be here.
Okay, we're starting to run out of time on this. Anybody who hasn't said hello and they would like to, just speak out.
Susan Chasine, I'm active in Democratic Socialists of America and California Alliance for Retired Americans and live in Berkeley.
Okay, and if anybody else would like to say hi, now is your chance. Otherwise, we're gonna move on. I'm counting to 3. 1.
Have fun catting at Cara.
Okay,
Hey,
we're
Igor
ready.
Tregov, joining you from Chochenyo Alani Land in Berkeley, and longtime member. Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna move into the meeting now. We are being recorded. And thank you, everybody, for joining in and becoming officially part of this tonight. And so what we got going on tonight is we endorse so many people between the Contra Costa, our OR, and us. And what happened is a huge amount of the people got endorsed. And it was like 1 year ago. I'm talking about the 2020 election. So we invited quite a few people, and we've got a number of people here tonight who are going to share about their first year in office. And we didn't invite people who've been in the position for a while, just people who were new. So we actually don't, the only person that we have here right now who's on this list is Andy. So would you like to start, Andy? So Andy, he's a real champion for affordable housing. He's on the Alameda County Planning Commission, and he's just completing his first year on the Berkeley Rent Board. Okay, go for it, Andy. And you have, including questions, about 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's amazing that it's been a year. It feels like it's been a lot longer, and it feels like it's been a lot shorter. But a big thank you to Our Revolution for your partnership and encouragement along the way. I think it's a lot of us locals who are new to office as progressives that were endorsed have shared a lot of support for each other along the way as we're all trying to figure out how to lead and listen during COVID, when connection to community organizations and community members is a lot harder to be present. I'm really proud of the work we've done on the Berkeley Rent Board. We have actually successfully prevented, along with the city council, any forcible evictions in Berkeley by the sheriff. There hasn't been a single forcible eviction by the sheriff's office since the COVID state of emergency was declared, which isn't to say no one has been displaced, and which isn't to say there isn't a crisis coming up as the local state of emergency may end sometime next year. But it is to say we've been really successful with our immediate protections and the work that we've done. And the really exciting thing about that is it's changing the conversation about what's possible as we're talking about next steps and changes and improvements we can make as a leader on affordability and eviction protection as a community. The fact that we could go during the most difficult financial time period and achieve that through policy, it's really demonstrating what's possible when we pull a lot of funding sources together. And some of the conversations we're having behind the scenes and in public and elsewhere, just about if we can redirect these resources now, what does it look like to find more resources to keep people housed who are on the verge? Because we know it is so much cheaper for the government to keep folks in their homes than to provide services to the homeless, than to try to rehouse people, than to go through all of that process. But we've never had as robust of a housing retention program as we do now. And so it's really an exciting time to be forward looking at what's possible. But it's also a scary time as some of the protections that we have are beginning to sunset at the state level. And so we need to be really vigilant for that. We're also at a place, I want to start talking about this every time I talk to community groups, where there are 5 members of the Berkeley Rent Board who are going to be up for re-election or up for election next year. We have a lot of folks who are termed out. And so if any tenant advocates or folks who live in affordable housing in Berkeley are interested in running for the rent board, we're definitely trying to recruit good progressive candidates. And I would encourage folks to reach out to myself or another commissioner. It's always a struggle with our two-term limits to make sure that we have enough good progressive folks on the bench to keep filling those seats and having those successes. The other thing I would just add is we are working on a ballot measure in Berkeley. It's going to be some infrastructure, but we're probably doing a very large affordable housing bond measure. It's going to be in conjunction with the city council, but I know that myself and others are hoping that the affordable housing component might be as much as $300 million. So we're really hoping that we can put a big press for more affordable housing to be built by the city itself in the coming cycle. And that's kind of where our big priorities are right now. I want to make sure to have time to answer any questions that folks might have.
Okay, if you have a question, you can either put it in the chat or you can use the little hand raising thing and we'll try to follow that. Who would like to ask a question? I don't see any hands up on the thing, but.
Anyway.
Okay, go for it, Steve.
So, Andy, so we're going to try to, and this is for everybody too, Jake's going to do a quick summary, kind of our talking points at each meeting and our town halls at the end and kind of get our action points. So you mentioned reaching out, timeline for people to reach out, and where would you like them to reach out to talk to you if they're interested in running? I'm going to put that in a little follow-up email that we're going to do to membership.
Yeah, Carroll has my contact information, but probably the next 3 months if people are really serious about it. It's not till probably April, May that decisions start getting made next year, but it's a long process to get everyone connected, and we try to do it through consensus.
Right, and we want to build capacity for potential, candidates and those sort of things too. It's something to think about and sort of do, people do their due diligence and that kind of stuff. So, okay, so your whatever contact information Carroll has is fair game for you then, Andy, to reach out to you if we have members interested? Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll get it to you later, Steve.
Yeah, no worries, Carroll. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, do I see any hands up?
Hey, Carroll, I'll just quickly ask a friendly question to Andy.
Okay.
Andy, it seems like there's some movement within the unincorporated areas to try to push for some rent stabilization in Alameda County. I know you're on the rent board. It's kind of a different role, but I'm just seeing how do we get support from North County, from Oakland, from Berkeley, to some of the things that are more countywide. I think one of the things I'd like to remind people is there are progressives in central Alameda County and the unincorporated communities and below Oakland. So I'm just saying, how can we be allies in supporting those efforts?
Well, that's a great question, Honorable Kusiak. I think that, we get so into districts and cities and what part of town you live in and what your zip code is and whose council district. By and large, the average person does not care if they live 2 blocks into Berkeley or 3 blocks into Oakland or 1 block into San Leandro. But that's how we figure out rights and rules and regulations. But affordability and housing kind of crosses over, right? And so one thing I would say is we know there's documented economics that if rent is stabilized in a larger region, it helps everyone within that region, right? If my landlord is having to compete with rent control in Albany and Emeryville, I'm better off because the market rate will be lower for housing because more of it's affordable and more of it's stabilized. And so one is just that it's in folks' self-interest for there to be standards in place that help people across the board. But the other I really think is that we know in Berkeley what rent stabilization accomplishes and what it looks like. And so we have that responsibility to advocate our members of the Board of Supervisors and our elected officials to support that elsewhere from our own personal experiences. But the more we can do to get any cities within the county or right across the border in Contra Costa or even, anywhere else in the Bay Area, it does make a difference because it builds power for tenants, it builds power for housing advocates, and it demonstrates what works. And then we'll have a better chance of passing, regional and statewide measures. And so, it's one, just basic solidarity, but the other thing is it really does help build a movement. And it is one of the reasons why we take the policy work we do on the rent board so seriously, is we hope that it can help to be a model of effective legislation elsewhere where it's permitted.
All right. Are there any more questions for Andy? Okay, Andy, thank you so much for coming, and thanks for having such a great first year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's good to see everyone.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. Our next speaker is Carroll Fife. I think everybody here knows that name. When I hear her name, I immediately think of this strong warrior for housing. And previously, Carroll spent many years in public service and as a community organizer. She's really involved in her community, and she listens to them to see what their needs are, which is so important these days. And now Oakland is really fortunate to have her on the city council for Oakland's District 3. Carroll, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I apologize. I'm actually leaving a community event that I just attended at the Infirmary, where some groups and organizers are trying to create extracurricular outside of the city activities for people to do across the ages, and from young people to seniors, everybody. It's an amazing opportunity to grow the activities at the Infirmary Park. And so am I breaking up at all? Because I am in motion.
You're actually not. You sound good.
Awesome. So I don't have much time, and I do want to share just a couple of the things that I'm really proud of that I've accomplished this year. But I do have a 4:30. I'm planning for a really big council fight on Tuesday around public safety. I'm sure everybody knows that the climate right now in Oakland and in Northern California, this state, is really challenging when it comes to public safety. But I just want to share with everybody that the things that are happening are so strange and out of the ordinary. We've got to question whether it is actual or things are being manufactured to create a climate that calls for increased militarized policing. There was a movement that happened after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd were basically lynched, there where people around the world were calling for the reform of our public safety systems. And the backlash to that, I believe, is what we're experiencing right now. And anytime you have an election where high profile, high ranking elected officials are up for grabs, which we have with our district attorney, with Oakland's mayor, with the board of supervisor for Alameda County, as well as several city council seats in the city of Oakland, we got to look at what is being cultivated to create a tough on crime approach to campaigns. So it is not something that people should take lightly. It is something that is being discussed in the news and community groups and next door, all these different spaces. So we've got to come together more than ever to remember that what we're seeing is the outcome of the lack of a safety net that happens when you don't have access to affordable health care, when you don't have access to mental health supports, when our public schools are underfunded. You talk about defund, let's talk about our social safety net that's been defunded for generations and non-existent in some cases, right? So it's a serious time. It's a challenging time for progressives when everybody and their uncle wants to say that they're progressives. We need to be in leadership about what that really means. So I'm telling folks, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we've got to be more vigilant than ever about what it is that we stand for. So it's like comparing clean water to dirty water, because there's these faux progressives, what do they call them, pinos and dinos, that are masquerading like they care, but they're really dismantling all of the public sector as well as everything that we care about. So I just wanted to say that as a precursor to, we got work to do. And some of the work that I'm proud of that we've been able to accomplish is to really take homelessness seriously. So in my little corner of the city and District 3, I've been able to fight, because I've had to fight since I've been here. So while I am on city council, I'm still just one person fighting the administration. I think we're clear that the mayor of Oakland tried to not have several organizations endorse me. And because the mayor appoints the city administrator and other department heads, those are the same individuals that are trying to obstruct the work that I'm doing right now, including standing up crisis homeless interventions throughout my district in the city of Oakland. But I've been able to fight and get 40 to 60 units. We're starting with 40, but we can expand, of emergency housing. And at 3rd and Peralta, we're having a paint and art day several days this week. So if folks want to come out and help us paint some of these heated tiny homes through pallet shelter, I'd love to have folks out. We're going to serve people breakfast and have some music and just really try to make this space a loving and welcoming space for our unsheltered neighbors. We also finished Mom's House, and that is clearly external to the city council because a lot of them fought me on Mom's House, but we've been able to finish the remodeling of that. We have our first family moving in just in time for the holiday season. And so we have 2 units of housing, but we're also looking at another 25 unit building to purchase that should be coming online in the next few months so we can rehabilitate that. We were able early on in my tenure to push for and get a historic investment in violence prevention. And I'm going to tell you that the Oakland Police Officers Association, as well as members of the administration, are trying to say that that was defunding the police. That is a lie. The police received a $38 million increase in their budget this year over the last year. And they keep trying to drum up just drama and contention and fear and make it be the city council's fault, when that is more, can I say BS? I'll just say BS than anything. But we were able to make those investments and are starting to see the benefits of that with different community ambassador programs throughout the city, as well as, you can say BS. Okay, thanks, Andy. As well as town nights. We have other programs for people to take advantage of. We have our violence responders when things happen out on the streets, and we're growing that program as well. But the real fight for me, because this year I was getting the lay of the land, is next year, where I'm addressing issues around housing and homelessness and racism and structured racism and capitalism and different efforts that I'm working with that are countywide, statewide, federal, and local. So this year I was doing a temperature check. 2022, we're hitting the grounds with real campaigns that we're talking about taxing the rich. We're putting that on the ballot. We're talking about getting funding to our most critical spaces that are deeply in need, in conjunction with other agencies, other elected bodies. And there's just a lot happening. But what I do want to leave you with is that I think you all know that we're being lied to. We're being lied to by people in positions of power, and we've got to be able to call out those patterns. And we have to build the bench for other individuals who are ready to take up the mantle of what it means to fight for real progressive change, because these systems were not created overnight, but we need people who are ready to take them on in order to change the things that need to be changed. But there always is, which I always say, power and organizing power in the people. And we've got to be talking to the folks that are not engaged so they can join our fight. And that is what I have to share today.
All right. You've had quite a year, and we expected that. Would anybody like to ask a question? Carol does need to leave pretty quick, but we have time for maybe one or two very quick questions if somebody would like to ask something. Okay. I guess nobody wants to.
I threw up a hand.
Oh, Michelle, yeah.
Oh, okay, go for it.
If for people who are looking to running in 2022, quick question on your endorsers. Are you seeing support now that you're in office, or did that kind of fall off once you became elected?
Not nearly the support that I need. I know it's there. And I know if I made specific asks of people, then they would stand up and help. I will say that there's a hardcore of my volunteers, and it ranges between 15 and 30 people that still phone bank and door knock every week and have since last year. So that has continued to be a staple that I think has been really, really helpful. And we're going to expand that in 2022 with some of the work that we're doing. But my 4 Peace campaign is something that a lot of my volunteers have picked up to support, as well as other organizations like the Community Ready Corps. And I have other folks who are trying to get involved in the 4 Peace campaign. So I'm excited about that work, and I can let folks know more about that. And, you know, it's definitely not as exciting as an electoral campaign. And so I'll share that. But you know, it is what it is. I think people know what to do during elections, but in the off season, when we're in office, people, I guess it's not as exciting. They feel like they did their work, and that is the farthest thing from the truth.
I had a question about public safety and the situation in Oakland. I'm in Berkeley, and you mentioned the amplification of these threats. Do you see this so-called flash mobs stuff as being bogus or overhyped, or in an excuse for going back on the changes that you've been able to make?
What I will say is that in conditions where we've had generational poverty and neglect, that it becomes easy to motivate individuals to engage in activity that has a real impact on our communities. And what I do know is that I'm getting emails and phone calls and texts from constituents that say the police are watching this incident happen, from cannabis dispensaries, small businesses, that I'm watching police sit in their cars and watch this incident happen. And to me, that is suspicious and problematic. And I've received emails where constituents have told me when they call the police say, "Don't call us, call Carroll," since she wants to defund the police. So there's something happening, because people, I don't believe that I'm getting this message person after person, business after business, dispensary after dispensary, if it weren't true, right? So I believe that there is a blue flu to some degree happening, because the information that we're getting from the top officials in police ranks is different than the rank and file officers. And I'm the chair of public safety in the city of Oakland, and I received an informational report where it was attrition was attributed to officers telling the police department that they want to be closer to their families. But in press conferences, what I'm hearing from the police chief is the city council is disparaging of the police department. And so those are two different reports from the police department, but with different impacts on the public. So then I get other reactionary forces saying, well, if the city council appreciated the police more, we wouldn't have attrition. That's just not true. That doesn't even make logical sense. So that's what I'm saying. We're being lied to. I'm not exactly sure all of the places, but we've got to be clear that we know there's evidence to show that they are not responding to certain incidents. And the question is why?
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more. Carol needs to leave very soon. So Mark, go for it.
Well, I'll just make it quick. I'll say I have never seen a more dedicated and passionate group of volunteers than Carroll's people. Rain or shine, Carroll has helped instill a movement activism into city works. And it shows, of course, we need to scale it up for 2022. Of course, it needs to be scaled up, but it shows what happens when you elect inspiring and motivated movement elected officials. And so it's an important tribute to give to Carroll and to the people that she's inspired.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for coming. I know you're on a tight schedule, and we appreciate that you did come here and chat with us for a bit.
I will always make time for you all. Mark, it is such a pleasure to hear your voice. I appreciate you all for who you are and who we are, and we got to keep building. And yeah, 2022 is going to be a hell of a year, so let's get ready for it.
All right. Okay, folks, moving along. The next person that we're going to hear from is Anna Vasudeo. She's like a real advocate for security and sustainable transportation to get students in school very safely. She's been on the PTA as Vice President of Equity and Inclusion, and she's just completing her first year on Berkeley School Board. Anna, welcome.
Thank you so much, Carol and Our Revolution East Bay, for having me. I really appreciate just being here and feeling really inspired. Going after Carol's, it's very tough, but I will try to be as inspirational. Thank you so much for your support. It's been a hell of a year for anyone serving in schools anywhere around the country. I just got back from the California School Board Association's conference, and one of the keynote speakers clapped and he said, "Thank you all for being here. I know that many of you may not be here, later." And it was kind of joking, but also kind of true. I think this is a year where a lot of school board members felt very much attacked, very much polarized around the issue of school reopening. And I started right in the thick of that. So very challenging, but am happy that I've been able to use my background in government and in planning and in public health to really make sure that our schools open as safely as possible. And so I'm just going to talk about a couple of the things that I'm proud of here in Berkeley, and just, regionally with my colleagues. And so really quickly, we opened our schools last spring, and that was very exciting for me. But what was more exciting is that, we opened our schools safely by working really closely with our education workers, with our labor partners, to make sure that both our educators and our students had all the appropriate safety measures when they came to school. And I think that a lot of districts are still struggling with this, but very concretely, California received over $800 million in funding for student testing this year. And, for a lot of districts, they still have yet to implement robust testing programs. But here in Berkeley, we have a very strong surveillance testing program. I was really excited to work really closely with the district over the summer. So the summer was really busy. We had the Department of Public Health announcing new health protocols for districts. And I worked really hard. I've switched my career from planning to public health. And I worked for a school reopening program with a public health nonprofit. But what it allowed me to do was ensure that, when we hit the ground running at the beginning of the year, that we had a robust student testing program. And so weekly, our unvaccinated students have access to free, affordable testing on our campuses. Results are ready in 15 minutes. We're able to isolate any positives, and education workers too, that were feeling scared to come back to the classroom, have access to testing. So that's something that I've been really proud about. I also worked hard to spearhead a vaccination or test policy that goes into effect faster than the governor's announcement. I don't know how many of you know, but in October, the governor announced the first statewide vaccination mandate in the United States, which is very exciting for California. But it doesn't go into effect until vaccines for certain age groups have received FDA approval. And so that's a little different than emergency use authorization. So in Berkeley, starting in January, if you're 12 and up, you are either going to have to show proof of vaccination, or you can test on campus again for free. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our students and our education workers safe. So I was really happy to be able to spearhead that policy in the fall of this year. And, another thing that I'm really proud of is that we have our own public health department here in Berkeley, which allows us to do some really great things like host culturally responsive vaccination clinics. And so for our students, I'm really proud of our work with our city partners to make sure that we have vaccination clinics that cater towards our African-American students, our Latinx students, right? Students that, traditionally have a hard time getting appointments for many reasons, right? Through the public health channels, but that we're coming to where families are to meet them where they're at, right? And so that we have education and accessibility to vaccination on our campuses, particularly for our low-income families. And so we work really closely with our Office of Family Engagement and Equity to make sure that we have culturally responsive outreach in place for our families that need public health support the most this year. So I think it's been a lot of new learning for me, but in addition to all the public health stuff that we've had to face as part of reopening our schools, I'm also really proud to have spearheaded 3 new equity-based resolutions for Berkeley Unified School District. In June, I worked with our LGBTQ advocates and actually with Andy Kelley, who was here presenting earlier, on a resolution in honor of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month. I also worked with a new parent group, a new AAPI parent group here in Berkeley Unified School District to pass a resolution denouncing hate crimes and bigotry targeting our AAPI community. And as part of that resolution, we're creating a reporting channel for our families who may feel any kind of hate crime at our schools. And so I'm particularly proud of that resolution. I also passed a resolution in support of the achievement and success of all Latinx students in Berkeley Unified School District. Our district is 23% Latinx, and so I'm very excited to have passed that resolution. And I continue to advocate to keep targeted interventions for our African-American students as part of an African-American success framework that passed before I got elected, but you need to continue to fund these interventions so we can really close our opportunity gap for our African-American learners. And so for me, it's not just flipping the switch and making sure that we're back in school, but also that as we come back to school, right, that we're addressing the learning needs of our students and continue to keep our most vulnerable students in mind. As Andy said, 2022 is going to be a hell of a year. And I think Carroll also said that. We are going to be electing 3 new school members here in Berkeley. We're going to be electing 3 new school directors. And so I think now, as I gear up for my new colleagues that are coming in, I want to make sure that all of you, right, can help us elect some great progressive leadership that will continue to fight so that our public schools are fully funded. I think that's always, the most important thing to me is to make sure that we have support for our public schools, that we can retain all our amazing educators here in Berkeley, and that we can continue to keep our classrooms small. And so that's really important to me, making sure that I have great colleagues, great progressive colleagues that also keep equity in mind. As we've come back from school, I think we're going to feel the impacts of the pandemic for a long time. A lot of these public health things might change, like we might have less student testing next year, just because students will be more vaccinated, I hope, right? If we do this right, more people will get vaccinated. But I think that on issues like learning loss and making sure that we're supporting our vulnerable students, I'm going to need progressive colleagues that say, yeah, we want to make sure that we're supporting those students that need it the most.
All right. Sounds like you're having a really busy year. Who would like to ask a question? Okay, Igor.
Thank you so much for your leadership, School Board Director. And I'm going to throw you a couple of softballs because I know you have also been a leading voice in the fight for our climate and climate education. Could you talk about your work and your colleagues' work for the Berkeley USD to pass one of the first resolutions in the state in support of climate education? Could you also talk about your work in support of safe streets to school?
Yeah, thank you so much, Igor. Those are fantastic questions. So really proud that last month we passed a climate literacy resolution here in BUSD. I was very excited to have Igor's support and the Sierra Club's support for that resolution. And as part of that resolution process, we're going to have an educator-led committee to talk about a climate literacy, to help develop a climate literacy curriculum for our district. And I think that's really important, that we give educators the voice and the agency, right, to lead this work, and that it's not top down, but that we're really, highlighting all the different climate literacy related work that our educators are really interested in. And it's really diverse. It's everything from waste management to nutrition to environmental justice, and also transportation. And so, as Igor mentioned, for me, with my transportation background, I know that the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions here in Berkeley and nationwide is in the transportation sector. And so one of the things that we're taking on is the reassignment of our middle schools. And for me, it's really important that whenever we do something big, we think about, okay, how are we getting our kids around in the most sustainable way? Do they have access to free transit? Are we talking to AC Transit about that? Are we, making sure that we're building safe bicycle lanes for our students? Can they get to school safely? Are we working with our city to make sure that we have enough crossing guards in place so that our families feel that it is safe to walk and bike to school, right? So that our children feel safe. And so there was a terrible collision on Marin Avenue. There's been 2 collisions on Marin Avenue here in Berkeley during dismissal. And there's a school up here, and parents witnessed that. And they said, well, this is one of the reasons why we don't let our children take sustainable transit. And so I was able to work with our council member, Susan Wengraf, to host a conversation and to put in some infrastructure, changes, some new daylighting, so that we can make those streets safer for our kids. And so I think really working with our city partners so that these wonderful climate literacy resolutions don't just stay as rhetoric, that we're able to actually implement them, and that families feel like, both the city and the school district are working together. That's been really important to me, to make sure that there's an open line of communication with our city council, that when we're making decisions that impact transportation in the city, that we're giving our council members a heads up, and that we're working together to create a culture of safety, of transportation safety. And, I'm really excited that we planted the Miyawaki Forest here in Berkeley. It's one of the first Miyawaki Forest projects in the United States. And so making sure that we're talking about sustainability comprehensively in our district is really important to me. So if that's something that anyone's passionate about, let me know. Making sure that Berkeley continues to be a leader in sustainability is something that I want to make sure that we continue to do.
Okay, I think we're going to have to move on now because we have a lot of people to hear from. Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you,
It was
Carol.
really good to hear about what's going on with you. Okay, so what's happening? Mike Hutchinson is off and on the call today. He hadn't actually confirmed, but we really want to hear from him. So are you on now, Mike?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go for it. What I want to say about Mike, I've been following him on Facebook, and he is just kicking ass in the city of Oakland in the schools. I love it. Okay, go for it, Michael or Mike.
Thank you. Either one's fine. And I appreciate a couple of minutes, and I apologize for not being on top of confirming. So just real quickly, an update. I guess I ran a campaign really on 2 main issues, to end school closures in Oakland and OUSD, and to fix the financial mismanagement that's plagued us since the state takeover of 2003. There were a lot of secondary issues, like bringing more local control to charter schools and bringing community engagement and community decision-making into the process. But really, for me, it always started with ending school closures and cleaning up the financial mismanagement. We've been very, very successful along that front. Is that my internet? On October 27th, through a series of votes at the school board, we ended school closures in Oakland. So school closures is over in Oakland. We ended what they were calling cohort 3 of the blueprint process. By resolution and by statute, there will be no school closures this year and next school year, and it would be a very big lift to bring it back again. We were so successful that after that vote on October 27th, 2 weeks later, on November 8th, Alameda County Superintendent Karen Monroe sent OUSD a letter that approved our current year's budget, but cited what they call a lack of going concern. And because of that, was going to impose FCMAT, again, over OUSD, to make recommendations that we'd be compelled to follow. And she doubled down on that by threatening to withhold compensation from our superintendent and school board if we didn't cooperate. We filed an appeal unanimously. The school board filed an appeal to State Superintendent Tony Thurman. He denied our appeal on November 23rd. So right now, we are any day going to have FCMAT again imposed upon us in OUSD. This is an unjustified overreach by Karen Monroe. It is punitive, and there is a direct connection to us voting to end school closures, and less than 2 weeks later, her making this determination. The good thing is we are united as a school district in resisting this, and Karen Monroe is up for re-election in June. And so I have already met a very strong candidate who will be running against her, Elise Castro. Hopefully in the next few weeks, many people will have a chance to meet her, but we are in a huge fight now in Oakland. Really, it's our final fight to finally be free of these oversights and controls that were first imposed upon us in 2003. And so just to be clear, we are not in financial trouble in Oakland. We ended last year with over a $40 million budget surplus, and we've been scheduled to receive almost $300 million in COVID relief dollars on top of that. And so there is an online petition circulating, and over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be reaching out and others really asking for help for Oakland and OUSD to make sure we can resist this takeover attempt by Alameda County Superintendent Karen Monroe. So I guess that's my quick update. Before this action, it was a much more positive update, but this is really just kind of taken everyone by surprise in the last few weeks that Karen Monroe decided to move in this sort of way.
All right, do you have time for a couple questions?
Sure.
Okay, I see Sherry has her hand up.
Hi, Mike. We've worked together a couple of times as we did the strike together. So I just actually today had a conversation with Elise Castro, and she's hit the ground running. She is actually started her campaign. So I'm very impressed with her. So I think there's good news on that front. And that's really just kind of my comment more than a question.
Yes, and I am officially endorsing Elise Castro, and I really encourage everyone to give her a look and give her a chance. And for me, one of the impressive things besides her credentials is she's already lined up some really key support and done some real serious candidate training. So I think she is a very serious, legitimate candidate who, in her conversation with me, led with her top issue being an end to privatization and the austerity measures. So I'm very excited about her candidacy.
All right, would somebody else like to ask a question of Mike?
Great.
So how much pressure can, sorry, I just got to raise my hand. How much pressure can be placed on the Alameda County Superintendent if when necessary? Like, should we go to the press? Should we talk to our progressive allies and start pressuring her all over everywhere?
Yes, and it's already begun. We have an on, oh, there it is. The online petition is in the chat that we started a series of media hits this past week that made Karen Monroe very, very upset, so much so that she reached out to the management of KPFA. There is a really good article in the Oakland Post this week also. But yes, Karen Monroe is the target. She has the unilateral authority to rescind her decision. And it is really, really important for us as a local school district that we don't allow the county superintendent to take away local control by imposing FCMAT again.
Okay, I just like to mention the OREB newsletter twice this week included the link for people. So if you lose your link here, go ahead and read the newsletter and sign it. Okay, I think we got time for one more question. Andy?
Mike, thank you so much for all of your work on school closures, first of all. I've been following this and reading what you've been writing about it, and it really, part of Karen's decision that felt like a slap in the face to me was the idea that because we worked so hard with OEA and others to pass the bond measure, and that was one-time funding, that somehow that's not good enough. It really just seemed like an insult to voters and Oakland residents. Is there, you know, if the board's considering putting another funding measure on the ballot to try to address the long-term funding claims that are being made? And if so, if there's an opportunity for the parties and this organization and others to support it early?
I'm going to try to answer that quickly because that's about a 20-minute answer to really get into it. The quick answer is there is probably going to be a reauthorization of Measure A, which is one of the extra funding measures that we already have on the books. That's about to sunset. But we have enough financial resources, and Karen Monroe is out on a limb with her determination. That's not what our new senior business officer is saying, and that's why we had a unanimous vote from our school board to appeal. So it's kind of two things, and yes, what she's really doing is criticizing us in Oakland for using all of these COVID relief dollars to manage our finances going on. And that's what we should be using these dollars for, is to cushion some of those kinds of blows. So it's going to be really interesting. And thankfully, we have an election in 6 months. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make this a really big issue in this election, because I just don't think that the county superintendent should step in and disenfranchise Oakland voters.
Thanks, Mike.
But I can talk about this offline for hours.
Sure.
Yeah, one other quick question. Are there any elections in the Oakland Unified School District that we should be watching?
I'm sorry, any
elections for the Oakland or the
Yes, so same thing. Next year in Oakland, it's going to be Hunger Games. And so not only do we have the county superintendent's race in June, which has big implications, then in November, we have 3 of the 7 school board seats up again. It looks like, I would say there's about a 95% chance the 3 incumbents are not going to run for re-election. And if that's the case, that means in an election cycle, we will have forced all 7 incumbents out of office without even running for re-election. So we still need good candidates to step in, but hopefully we can finish the job that we started in the last cycle in 2020.
All right.
With Tony Thurman's progressive background, are you disappointed? Any effort to try and get him to help?
Yes, very disappointed and very surprised. We're all surprised. And so there's already a plan in the works for myself and OEA President Keith Brown and maybe a couple of others to have a face-to-face meeting with Tony Thurman, because I need to hear him say it to my face, because I'm very surprised personally.
Okay, I think we're going to move on then. Mike, thanks for making it.
Thank you.
All right, now that we're on the trail of school boards, we're going to do one more school board. We're going to hear from Michael Kusiak of Castro Valley. He's got a 20-year career in public higher education. He knows how California publication and government work. And he's just finished his first year on the school board of Castro Valley. Michael.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you again last year for your support for my campaign. Like I was saying, it can kind of be lonely in central Alameda County sometimes, finding progressive networks to connect with. But I see so many people here that have become friends and allies and folks that I can just lean on to learn. This has been an interesting year to be on the school board. It has not been as dramatic as a lot of the headlines you've probably seen in other communities. I think it says a lot about just sort of where we are in Castro Valley. One thing that I like to say about Castro Valley is, one thing that makes me excited about Castro Valley Unified is we are a majority minority district. I am not the future of Castro Valley. And I think what's really important to me in my time at this school board is to ensure that our institution really supports all of our students in this community. In a community at times outside of Castro Valley, I think many have perceptions of our community, and rightfully so. So I'm really excited about a lot of the anti-racism work that we already have in place in our schools, the social and emotional support that we've been bringing in because of the extra COVID dollars. The thing that frustrates me about being on a school board is to see what little control you have with your fiscal fate. So much of this is driven by what's happening in Sacramento. And I think my other trustees here can say this, is that we don't get what we need to fund our mandate as a public institution. We see disinvestment in so many parts of our public schools, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's busing, whether it's our child nutrition program, which thankfully USDA has come in this year and Nancy Skinner supported legislation that has actually led it to be completely funded. I do see that as an opportunity to transform that space and how we do that. My call to action as to run for school board is two things. It really came from my own background with a single mom, moving from house to house, being homeless at times, and public schools were the place where I went to learn. It's where I was fed. So that perspective always drives my perspective when I'm thinking about what it means to be on the school board. It also has to do about being in an unincorporated community like Castro Valley. It can be confusing in a place like Castro Valley to advocate for our needs without local municipal control. Oftentimes our school district takes on things that I think other trustees would say this as well. School districts often think of the whole child and try to do what they can to help children for all their needs, where we see gaps out there. So what I hope and what I want to do is to learn more. It's been 1 year. My 1 year anniversary will be my next board meeting next week, and really try to see in the next year or two where I can sort of challenge the status quo when it comes to how we feed our children. That's important to me. Child nutrition is important. I think about a sustainable Castro Valley too. We see underinvestments in our infrastructure. One thing that you'll hear from unincorporated residents, we'll talk about the lack of sidewalks. Sidewalks to me are how you get kids to school. And we need to see more partnership with our county and just sort of amplifying and having campaigns in our communities around building livable spaces. And it's an environmental issue too. We need to think about how we're upzoning in Castro Valley, how we're building a more livable space. And I see intersectionality with our district. I think that's probably my biggest frustration in this past year, is seeing how maybe different districts don't work together or don't know how to work together or aren't compelled to work together to think beyond sort of the four corners of their budgets, which we are grateful for the one-time funds we're seeing. They've been fantastic in letting us bring on extra staff, ensure that we have testing in place, ensure that we could reopen. And what I would just say, where I think we're very fragile right now is, I'm a father of two. I have a fifth grader and a seventh grader. Learning loss is real. My youngest child in particular, he just got his second vaccine. I was very excited about that, but he actually has missed about 15 days total, not because he had COVID, but because he had symptoms. He had to get tested. He was out. So we have a lot of these elementary kids, particularly this year, who I say have like double learning loss of what they faced last year, but also the rightful protocols we have of keeping kids at home if they exhibit any sickness. But it's going to be many years as we work through this. There's a lot of know-how that our kids don't have. I was talking to my son about what it's like playing on the playground. And, there was 2 years of not playing on the playground. So the kids don't know how to, swing on the swings or even stand in lines, right? It's small things like that. And speaking in teachers, I try to make an effort to speak one-on-one with our teachers, both in this community and outside of Castro Valley. But I do think there is a mental health crisis for our teachers and for our students too, as they're back in school. They need your support and your empathy. We need to find a way to permanently change how we fund our schools, period. I've been grateful to get to go to every school site, learn about how they work and what's not working there. But I see, even in a relatively affluent community like Castro Valley, the symptoms of underinvestment over 2 or 3 generations in California. We need to rebuild our schools, period. And I hope that some progressive action can push that. I am disappointed Build Back Better and the promises from the Biden administration don't include infrastructure for our schools. It really should. And maybe as we're looking at a better budget in Sacramento, we can amplify the conversation, because we need to do better than just saying it's going to be a bond. We need to actually have an infusion of capital investment in our public schools if we really believe in them. that's it. I won't ramble anymore. I will just say one more thing. It's really important to me as an unincorporated resident that you appreciate the impact of the Alameda County Sheriff and policing in our communities. I'll be having an event next Sunday at 2. Yesenia Sanchez will be in my backyard. We'll be talking to her. I haven't endorsed or supported the candidate, but I think it's time for us to call out the actions of Sheriff Ahern and really have a choice. And I hope we can uplift our candidates who are running in opposition to him. So if you're interested, just shoot me a note. You're welcome to my backyard. I'm going to try to have some mulled wine and some apple cider. So that's it. That's me. And
Mike, if you want to provide any information to have us do a little more outreach for that event, go ahead and throw it in the chat or email Carroll the board.
Yeah, I'll send Carroll a note.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I should have something tomorrow.
Okay,
Very
great.
good.
Igor, I see you have a question for Michael.
Hi, Igor.
I do. Another softball. Michael, thank you so much for your leadership. And I know you've been involved in many fronts, many additional fronts of the fight to ensure that unincorporated communities like yours have a voice. Can you talk about what's going on with Alameda County Board of Supervisors redistricting?
Yeah, so the Board of Supervisors has come up with a final set of maps. At their last meeting, they kind of did some live redistricting. It was very exciting to kind of follow that as it went along. And they came up with the notion that Oakland needed to have at least 3 members of the Board of Supervisors, and unincorporated communities need to have at least 2 supervisors. This, of course, leads to certain outcomes and what the shapes of those maps are. And those maps will probably be approved in the next few weeks. So Castro Valley will continue to be in a district that kind of extends from, I think, like Montclair, and then is connected by the freeway down to Castro Valley and then connected to Pleasanton. It also tries to acknowledge historical Black communities within sort of Oakland going into the unincorporated areas, as well as Latino communities. I will be honest, over the years, Supervisor Marley and I haven't agreed on a lot of things. I did appreciate his comments at public comment during the meeting when he said that he had recommended for a much more independent process. And that's probably one of my takeaways from this, is that it's really uncomfortable for lawmakers to come up with their own lines. We have lines that have been created that I believe preserve every board member's seat in some fashion. So a message to me is like, can we please get reform there? But the one thing that, as an unincorporated resident, I don't really have an opinion about whether or not we need 2 supervisors on there. We had Wilma Chan, who was very passionate and for supporting our unincorporated communities, and really appreciate her advocacy in getting a municipal advisory council in place for Cherryland and Ashland and for San Lorenzo. But I think what's important is to not confuse that type of representation with the need fundamentally for municipal governance in our communities. That's sort of my call to action from this, is like, we need to double down on finding ways to allow our communities to be self-sufficient, to be incorporated, to be towns and cities, and have been working behind the scenes to hopefully see something in the new year that could support that finally. And I can go on a complete tangent that would like really bore you guys for a really long time on why unincorporated communities are unable to incorporate, but we are real communities. We should have mayors, we should have city councils, and we need to put an end to the fact that we have urban unincorporated communities. We need to have our self-determination, period. Because they're good for our school districts too.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Michael? All right, Michael, thank you so much for coming and letting us know what you're up to, okay? We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on now. The next person, everybody here, I'm sure really knows well, Jovanka Beckles.
Yay.
Yeah. Jovanka was on the Richmond City Council for 8 years. She worked for years and years as Richmond Youth Counselor, the Economic Development Commissioner. She's got a really long list of accomplishments. In the past year, she's been AC Transit Director for District 1. Go, Jovanka.
There's a note in chat, Carol, that she was going to try to get off and get back on her laptop.
Oh, okay. She'll be here really quick, I'm sure. I love this lineup of people here. This is who we endorsed and who has shown up.
I just let her back in.
Okay, great. Welcome, Jovanka. Oh, connecting still. Hello, Jovanka.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. Welcome. We already introduced you.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So yeah, I believe this meeting was to kind of give you a little rundown on how things have been going so far. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Let me see. Let me just because I know that as I start talking, well, things have been, coming right along as I do multitask to pull up some little reminders for myself of sort of some of the accomplishments that we have. One second, I apologize, y'all. I just walked in the door, had to go and log on to my computer.
Can I jump in, Jovanka, and buy you a minute just by thanking you?
Thank you. Sure.
When the pandemic happened, all the bus routes got changed to emergency conditions. And so when school started in Berkeley, we had about 4 routes that weren't getting our high school students in on time. They were getting there 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late. And Jovanka and the AC Transit folks worked so hard to get that fixed for us in about 3 weeks. I think for one of the routes and 4 or 5 weeks for the other 2. And that was just such an effort working with the drivers union and the signage people and the transit folks that we just really appreciate the way that you've been showing up for us in the big ways and the small ways. It's been really refreshing having someone who cares about our local community on the transit board. And so I just wanted to say thank you. It made a big difference in the community to feel seen and heard by you. And it's made such a difference just since you've been in office for us.
Thank you so much, fam. I really appreciate that, Andy, because it takes a lot to get stuff like that. And for me, as you all know, I am an activist. I'm an activist in office. And so, when the community comes forward with concerns and issues, my number one priority is to address them. And since you brought that up, I could start with that sort of issue of what's happening with some of the routes. As you all know, since the pandemic, lines have had to be cut because of really low ridership. But slowly but surely, we're getting, things are starting to come back up, and we're getting lines back running. The big issue though that we've been experiencing is just the low amount of operators that we have. People, unfortunately, y'all, operators died in this pandemic, and it's a really scary thing to see that. I'd been, receiving emails from the general manager. It was almost weekly in the middle of the pandemic. So that, of employees, operators particularly, who died from COVID. And so it's really sad. And, I hope that folks can sort of be patient with this process, because we're all in this madness together. We're all doing the very best that we can. And so, yeah, with having, really a shortage really of operators, it's been slow coming with regard to getting things back up to pre-pandemic levels. But it's happening. And like I said, I know, it's one thing to say, hey, be patient, but and it's another to not be able to get where you need to get, on time and, as scheduled. So, but we have a really amazing staff at AC Transit, and I have to really put that plug up there because they do care and they do hear us, and they know that I'm an activist. And so I feel like when issues come up or when I present ideas, they are so quick to take it and run with it, and I really appreciate that about the staff. But one line that has that it's going to be a while before it can come back is the 80. And so there was I had a community a forum and where the community got to come and listen and ask questions and get questions answered. And so that was the first time I heard about the issues with the line 80, people needing it back. And so I was like, okay, and we gotten letters and such. The problem is, unfortunately, the line 80, when you're talking about bringing things back online and back to pre-pandemic rates, you have to sort of start with the ones that are the most, the lines that have the most ridership, right? The most people getting on it, trying to get to work and school. And y'all, as I've said it before, those lines tend to be lines of color. And so, the line 80 was ranked, because staff ranks them, number 64 out of 80 lines in terms of priority and ridership. And so there were 63 other lines ahead of it that we, that were a priority. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you all is because some of you may have heard about a little drama that happened with the Berkeley City Council, where Berkeley wanted the idea. Council member Harris brought up the idea that we could have, fare-free Sundays, for example, something like that. And with the money that they'd be getting, that none of us have seen so far, unfortunately, that's the other piece I want to make sure I share with you all. Because the feds have not sent any money to any of these agencies and municipalities, unfortunately. At any rate, there was a stipulation that in order for the city to approve this, the stipulation was that we, AC Transit, or me, Jovanka Beckles, would bring back the line 80. And I shared that that's not a stipulation, that's not something that can happen right now based on the riderships that have, that we're trying to bring back, like you said, like for the students, Andy, right? Though that's important. Lines that are going, in some of our depressed communities, those lines. At any rate, the line 80, what we realized was that there is a need, of course, right, in that portion of Berkeley. So we're bringing back we're going to start a pilot program, the line 79. And so in essence, it's going to be able to cover people trying to get to Alta Bay, trying to get to, the connections. And so it's covering the part of Berkeley that it was most affected by line 80 not being in place. So that's one thing. So I'm sure you all have some questions. But what I am proud of is that, in our fight for police accountability and figuring out ways that we can live, that we can thrive, that we can cohabitate in this world and keep each other safe without having to put more and more police in places. And so I'm really proud of the fact that the sheriff's contract really fought for us to reduce the amount of money that the sheriff's department was getting from AC Transit. We hadn't even read a contract, and yet some folks had approved it for $27 million for 3 years. And I see my colleague, the Honorable Chris Peoples over. He's on this call, so that's wonderful. He can help me out with some of these facts. But so I called for an audit of the sheriff. You know, I asked that we audit the sheriff's contract, and so that's going to be happening. That's for Alameda. And then we're going to do the same thing for Contra Costa County, because, you know, please show us how you all are using $9 million a year. Doing what? Because the operators are saying they've made phone calls and it takes a while for the sheriff to come out. Sometimes they don't even come out. And I'm like, if we're spending $9 million a year, you know, they should be like there in no time flat. But we all know, you know, so that's happening. And we all know that, you know, we cannot police our way out of crime, and police departments aren't there necessarily like, I'll give you an idea. And I said, they're not there necessarily. They don't stop crime. There are lots of other things that we know can reduce crime, but, you know, we know that if someone is mentally ill and decides to strike an operator, now we're just going to be depending on police to come and help about what happened. They weren't there to stop it. Right. And so what are we spending all that money for if it's not for necessarily protection, if it's only to write a ticket or write up what happened after the fact? So, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll stop there. As maybe the questions come up, I may be able to kind of maybe reminded of other things that we have done. But one of the things another thing I'm proud of is, you know, we are human beings, and, you know, we eat food, and right, that food has to come out at some point. And so the operators were not having dedicated places, you know, places that they could actually stop and go to the bathroom and, you know, relieve themselves like a human being. And so we also, that was one other thing that came up. So I think I'll stop there just because I still wasn't able to find my documents fast enough. And I do see some hands up. So let's see.
Okay. The one hand I see right now is Chris. Do you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Sure. Although Jovanka picked up what I was gonna say. On the line 80, we did an analysis of the line and figured out that most of the ridership was on Ashby. Right. And so what we're doing is we're extending the 79. So instead of terminating at Rockridge BART, it's going to go down Ashby and terminate in Emory. So that'll pick up a lot of it. It doesn't pick up West Oakland, and that's gonna wait a while. Jovanka was right about our operators. Many of our operators were qualified to retire, and they like driving. They like the people they drive, and the pandemic really caused a whole lot of them to say, do I really want to put my life on the line and keep doing this? We have a good retirement system, so they're not earning a whole lot more money. The people who've been here for 30 years are paying us to drive. If they would retire, they'd probably make as much, given that they no longer paid Social Security and everything, as they do driving. So we lost a lot of folks. And if anybody knows anybody who wants a very good job with good pay and good benefits, actransit.org/careers.
Okay, we have a question
thanks.
in the chat. The question is, can Jovanka and Chris address hazard pay for the operators?
Well, you know, I'm going to say this, that I have, the reason you hear me stuttering is because of Brown Act violations. You know, there's sort of a, I have to be really careful what I can share with you all, but what I can share is I absolutely support hazard pay for the operators. I mean, you know, people died, you know, they put their lives or health on the line every single day. They have to go home, you know, to folks who, you know, children, sometimes elderly folks, and they have to still come to work. You know, I work for the county. You know, I was blessed, you know, to be able to work remotely with my clients. You know, I could meet, you know, for in the, therapy sessions with my clients on Zoom. These operators have to go to work every single day. And even under the best conditions, there are issues that they have to deal with, and hygiene issues that they have to deal with, that they have to address oftentimes on the buses. And so I agree. I support them. There was a rally yesterday for hazard pay. I was there, and I spoke and letting them know that I support any essential worker who did not have the luxury of sitting behind a Zoom screen.
Mhm. Okay, I see one more question here from Sudia.
Do you want an answer from me on?
Sure, yeah, Chris,
on
go
that,
ahead.
since he asked for an answer from both Jovanka and me?
Chris.
Two comments. One, the federal funding for that did not pass.
Oh, yes.
It passed the House. There was a Heroes Pay Act so it's a zero-sum game. How much service do we cut in order to give hazard pay? I'm all for hazard pay, but the federal funding for it never got taken up in the Senate. So that's an issue. And it's not a Brown Act violation because there's not four of us here, but it is a closed session violation, which is a misdemeanor. But it is fair to say for several months now, there has been active negotiation between the management and the union about hazard pay, how much, how it gets paid out, et cetera, et cetera. So it has not been ignored, but it is a matter it's a matter that gets negotiated with our union. And the instructions that we give our management happen in closed session, so we can't talk about those. But we can say that it's been actively negotiated for several months. There's figures being thrown around. It's not being ignored.
Right. And Chris, I do believe that not in closed session, but in open session, we did made a direction to the GM, right? We directed them, and that was an open session. Chris, you're on mute. Wasn't there a direction that we gave during open session?
Sorry, we directed them to negotiate, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay, right.
We directed them to negotiate, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Right. And I am gosh, it is awful, and I want them to continue in this fight and not give up and not say, okay, oh well, the feds are screwing us over. I want them to keep fighting and know that that I have their back, because I believe they deserve it. I mean,
we have time for just one more question. And did you have your hand up, Sudi?
No, I was just going to say that Jovanka should be an advisor to Pete Buttigieg on the national level.
Can't hear you.
Really? Was I muted?
I heard you. I heard her. I don't know if anyone else heard him.
I just said that I thought Jovanka should be an advisor to Pete Buttigieg on the national level.
That's right.
Really?
Help them out a little bit.
Okay.
Right.
Jovanka, thank you so much. I know Sundays are not your freest days. And thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate all of y'all, and it's a pleasure. I'm glad I could come and give an update because you all were amazing supporters in all of the this campaign as well as the others. So much respect and love, siblings. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, we'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, we're starting to get behind times. Is that unusual? So we have two more speakers. We have Gail Mclachlan. We have Devon Murphy. Then we move to the rest of our meeting. And we're gonna start out with Kelsey Presnell, who's gonna talk about Pamela's campaign. And then Vitsky Medina is gonna talk about frontline catalysts, and we'll finish off with Riley Bran, who's with the Cal Care nurses. And then we'll wrap up and have some music. And so That's what the rest of the day is going to be. So Gail McLaughlin, I know you all know Gail, and her accomplishments are just huge. They just go on and on and on. I just want to mention she was former mayor of Richmond for 8 years. And while she was there, she fought Chevron and won. Yay, Gail. Anyway, she's on the Richmond City Council now, where she continues to be a fighter. Gail, welcome.
Thank you so much, Carol. And thank you to all of you for inviting me and for all the wonderful work that you continue to do. It's so important that we all stay in touch. So this is a great opportunity for me to share some of the work that we've done over the past year in Richmond. And I want to start out by saying, as you know, hopefully a lot of you know, if some of you don't know, we have a progressive majority on the Richmond City Council. And thanks to yours and many other great endorsements in past elections. And I would say we have done some really great work laying a solid foundation for the progressive policies that we are going to be implementing going forward. Now, we've already started implementing a lot of progressive policies. We put forward lots of good programs, but we're just in the beginning of showcasing what we can do in Richmond with a solid progressive majority. So let me share some of the accomplishments. So we approved a balanced and more equitable budget that will fully open. And right now we have a lot of these open already, but they need to have some expanded hours. I'm talking about our senior centers, our community centers, our auditorium, our libraries, City Hall, and other city facilities that were closed during the pandemic. So they're all open now. We need to further expand hours, and that is on our agenda. So we allocated additional funding to help us clean up our city through public works and code enforcement. Again, we're hiring more people to make this happen. We're just beginning. We updated our system of public safety, and that's through transferring some funding from the police department to address citywide safety concerns with root cause solutions to our social problems. And we did this by expanding our Office of Neighborhood Safety, by safety program that's really a nationally renowned program to intervene in crime before it begins. And by, really having some great staff members who were formerly incarcerated go out into the community and engage with those who have been in trouble and really quell violence before it begins and steer them into the programs they need. A great program. We've also bolstered investment in youth employment. We've increased services and solutions for our unhoused residents, and we've created a non-police mental health crisis response program. We're in the process of creating that. We've allocated American Rescue Plan Act funds, that's ARPA funds, to beautifying our neighborhoods and addressing affordable housing needs. Now, there are millions that the city of Richmond received, and other cities, of course, and we're doing a community needs assessment that will be prioritizing certain needs that the community feels this money should be spent on. We've allocated some of it already for affordable housing and beautification, but we want the community weigh in. We also provided early protections and services for the unhoused during the pandemic, and we're working very hard to expand on those programs today with many, many layers of programs and strategies in place. We've adopted a local tenant eviction moratorium and a tenant anti-harassment ordinance. We received presentations on outreach to our small business community. We want to make sure they access funds that are available from the federal relief programs. We presented presentations on sea level rise. Eduardo Martinez, one of our council members, is here, and he organized that presentation. We also got a presentation on racial equity and economic development. We discussed quite a bit in closed session, major developments of great concern to our community and related lawsuits. I can't go into details about that, but we are definitely tackling those issues. We approved hiring a consultant to help us create a Richmond Green Blue New Deal. I call it a green blue. I presented this. It's a green blue New Deal. First of all, I want to thank you all because you all gave me the idea with your wonderful presentation on local green New Deals. And I added on green blue New Deal because we have 32 miles of shoreline in Richmond, and there's many jobs that can be created to help our help create a cleaner and more sustainable shoreline with restoration efforts and just general cleanup and protection efforts on our shoreline. But the green jobs are throughout our city, and we want to expand on those. So we have already put out the RFP, and staff will be coming back with a suggested firm to help us create this plan, and there will be community input involved and a lot of study. We also, as part of this Green Blue New Deal, we're going to be talking about and working through a just transition away from fossil fuels. And that means pressure on Chevron. That means shifting also to more renewables, more recycling, more sustainable food systems. And just in general, we need to have the kind of economy that isn't getting the largest amount of our tax base from a big oil giant. But in the meantime, we want Chevron to keep the city whole with its taxes. So even as we pressure them to decommission refining over a series of many years, or several years, we want them to pay the full amount of taxes that they have been paying because of the harm that they have caused our community. And of course, we want them to clean up the refinery space, the 3,000 acres that they occupy when they start to decommission and end the fossil fuel refining that we know they have to do. We also directed staff to research the potential of voting rights in city elections for our immigrant community. So we're looking at that very intensely because we know our immigrant community pays taxes and deserves to have the right to vote for their representatives. So that's on the agenda. We supported HelloFresh workers in Richmond. We have a HelloFresh warehouse to form a union. These workers are, needing that union to protect their rights and advocate on behalf of them. So we're right there with them saying they have every right and they should not be harassed in their process of forming a union. We also have banned natural gas. Again, that was an item that Councilmember Martinez put forward just recently. So in all new construction, the gas hookups are banned now. So we're excited about that as part of our environmental future. And I want to end by saying, we have some big changes going on in Richmond in terms of a turnover of our high-level staff. Both our city manager and city attorney are leaving. City manager has already left. We have a new interim city manager who's wonderful, longtime city staff member who worked in redevelopment agency and then worked as deputy city manager in the city manager's office. Her name is Shasa Carroll. She is very dedicated to the community and very interested in filling the many vacancies we have so we can have enough staff to fully clean up the city and to do the planning that is needed and to do whatever, clean up the illegal dumping and make it clear that our parks are places where our community need to enjoy and have any rehabs or renovations done on those areas of public space. And our city attorney, we will soon have an interim city attorney on board. So this gives us new opportunities because these new people, we will have the opportunity from the get-go to make sure they're a good fit for our community, to direct them to do the progressive work and help us create the progressive future that we need in Richmond. We already have done so many things, but of course the pandemic has slowed us down and other things have slowed us down as well. But now we're picking up speed. And I want to just, my final statement is that I just want to invite you all, and I'll put it out on Facebook, and anybody could email me about this if they'd like. My email is gayldirect@gmail.com. That's GAYLE direct@gmail.com. And I want to invite you to an event I'll be speaking at on the Occupy movement. And I think this is really important. It's going to be a panel discussion with an author from El Cerrito. His name is Michael Leviton. He wrote a book on the Occupy movement. You all may know him. He's going to be on it. I'm going to be on it talking about the work Richmond did in the Occupy movement. And we'll have someone from Southern California as well. This is part of the California Progressive Alliance. They do okay. We do occasionally different panel discussions, and I'm so happy to participate in that because it's clear that movement building is what brings us all together and gives us that force to create real change from the bottom up. And the Occupy movement, I think, was such a great stimulator for us all. And it led, I think, it opened up the road for the Bernie movement. And we all know what the Bernie movement has done for us to stimulate our movement. So, and still is doing for us. Of course, our Revolution East Bay and our revolution in general came about as a result of the Bernie runs in 2016 and 2020. So I just want to say the work is continuing. I want to keep connecting with all of you. I know you all are doing extraordinary work. This is what it's all about: connecting, networking, building solidarity, and pushing from the bottom up. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Gail, so much.
Any questions?
I just want to mention that Michael Leviton was at our last meeting and gave a little bit of a reading and then a nice long discussion about Occupy.
Wonderful, wonderful. See, you guys are plugged in everywhere. It's great.
Okay, let's see. Justine, did you have a question?
Justine.
No, I was just clapping.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say Justine and I have been in touch. She added, along with Mark and Wetsky. I always mispronounce your name. Someday I'll get it right. And I know Justine has offered a lot of input on the whole green job development. So, you know, many minds is what makes a sustainable future. So thanks.
All right. Who would like to ask Gail a question or make a comment?
Well, I'll throw myself in there. Of course, we need 1 million Gail McLaughlins, not just in California, but all across the United States. If there's some way we can replicate you in some way, this country would be in a better spot. I'm just wondering, Richmond is going to be leaving the Tom Butt era soon.
True enough.
And yes, and the city council meetings, I'm sure, are going to be less aggressive and less abusive in silly ways. I'm just wondering, what do we need to mobilize for? What do we need to be thinking for 2022 in terms of making sure that Richmond keeps its progressive majority and that it's positioned for a progressive future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first of all, you're absolutely right. It will be great to have Tom Butt not running and for any seat, I understand. And, you know, he terms out as mayor at the end of 2022. So that will make our lives a lot easier because he is just really an obstructionist and hostile and vindictive and all that. So going into 22, I know the RPA has done some interviews and some endorsement applications and such. I don't know where that is at right now. There are people that some people have already put forward their 501 form, which is their intent to run. So we will just have to wait a little bit longer to see what emerges, and at least that's where I'm at. And I'm going to look forward to us keeping and perhaps even growing our progressive majority.
All right. Did you want to say something, Jake?
Yeah, I just had that, one question I put in the chat. Like, can we actually tax Chevron out of existence in Richmond, or just tax them so much that like they're like, okay, we're just leaving?
Yeah, that would be great. Right now we have a tax settlement. Many of you have probably heard me speak about the $114 million tax settlement that we receive. We're still in the process of receiving from Chevron. It was spread out over 15 years. It will end in 2025. One of the provisions of that tax settlement is we as a city council cannot put on another ballot measure to tax them additionally until this tax measure runs out. But we can start thinking about 2024 to put on a ballot measure that would go into effect in 2025 to tax them more. And, perhaps it could be in line with the decommissioning process and keeping us whole in the interim, or it could be, some other type of tax measure. But they do not pay yet their fair share of taxes. We know they make billions and billions of dollars. And even though they give us a good chunk of our tax budget, they, comparatively to the harm they cause us and the amount of profits they make as a result of operating in Richmond, we do not feel they pay a fair share of their taxes. So we definitely are considering how to tax them more.
What about, ballot? Does it have to be a ballot measure? Or is that something that just has to be anyway for a tax, or can it be legislation?
I think ballot taxes need to go on the ballot. That's how I understand it. I forget what the state law is that requires taxes to be put on the ballot.
Okay, we have time. We have two questions, two hands up, Gordon Miller and Eduardo Martinez. And then we've really got to move on, folks. Gordon, you're muted.
You're muted.
Gordon, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
There. My apologies for slowing the unmute. You're talking about asking Chevron basically to pull out of town and paying taxes while they're on their way out. It struck me that the CEO may very well say, boy, that's pushy of them, those are greats and so on. Have you considered what the possibilities are for Chevron retaliating against the city of Richmond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this all has to be negotiated, and we're working with a movement of environmental justice groups. Communities for a Better Environment are very much in the lead on this, but we haven't at this point decided how to get a larger amount of taxes from them as they are winding down. But we are there are other ways besides just saying, hey, you should make us whole while you're winding down. They've never paid their fair share of the utility users tax. They pay a capped amount, but right now they have to pay that capped amount until the end of the tax settlement. After that, perhaps the ballot measure could be to require them to pay the full amount of their utility users tax. We would have to do some calculation on that to determine how much that is. In the past, we determined that that would be a significant amount each year. However, as they wind down, we may or we may not know whether that additional utility users tax will rise to the levels that we had wanted them to rise in the past. And we're also wanting to review, they have a new hydrogen project, or they're calling it green hydrogen, but there's a lot of greenwashing in it. So they want to shift into hydrogen processing. And so that's on the agenda too. So they may be doing some switching, but it may be more energy intensive. So that could be taxed, but we frankly do not want them to do any refining of hydrogen or processing of hydrogen that is not sourced with renewable energy. So that's, it's scientific analysis, it's financial analysis, it's risk analysis. All this has to happen at the same time as we're looking at enhancing our tax base. And I know Councilmember Martinez wanted to add something.
Yeah, the taxes do have to go through the election process or the voting process, but we do have, as Gail said, utility users tax that we can use against them, and we also have land use jurisdiction. And so what we did with Levin Terminal was to say that your land use needed to be curtailed. In other words, you had to stop doing coal and pet coke shipment, or rather handling, and that was through land use jurisdiction. So as Gail said, pretty soon the deal that was cut with them, will be over, and we can start using our utility users tax as a measure to get more money. But I've been trying to have a conversation with them about just transition, because we know and they know that oil production is going to cease at some point. And now is the time for us to have that conversation, to start planning a just transition, start planning how we can change our economy so that we're not devastated, so that they can start training their workers for new jobs before they lose the jobs that they have. And there's a big conversation that has to happen. And so far, they haven't been wanting to have that conversation with me, but I'm going to continue pushing. And with Gail on the city council, I'll have another ally to push them further.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gail, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all. I'm going to slip off here now, but thank you for continuing the great work you're doing.
Okay, yeah. And we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
Next, we still have like 3 or 4 people to go here. It's crazy. So our final speaker, as far as people that we endorsed and they went out and won, is Devon Murphy. He's a local guy. He grew up in Pinole. He went to UCLA, where he was the first gay and first Black student body president. He came back home to Pinole. He's working very hard on building a green economy these days. And he's, for Pinole, he's the first Black mayor. He's the youngest mayor and the first LGBTQ mayor. And he's been in office a year. Well, welcome.
Thank you, Kelley. I really appreciate being here. I am going to keep it so short. I don't know who was the brilliant child who put me after the amazing Gail, but that should never happen again, because she is absolutely phenomenal. And I don't know if she's still here, but Gail, thank you so much for making room for progressive activists like myself to be able to be elected at the local level, not just in West Contra Costa County, not just in Contra Costa County, but now even across the state of California. And I just want to honor you and say thank you. That was so inspiring to see all what you're doing. I don't have as much of a comprehensive update, but I am 1 year, this is my 1 year here, and I just wanted to come. I saw that this meeting was happening. I reached out to Carroll, and I just wanted to come and actually say thank you to you all. It has been an absolute journey to get to this point. And Carroll, you mentioned so much. I'm originally actually from San Francisco. My father moved to Pinole about 25 years ago. So I'm originally from Baby Hunters Point. Many of you already knew that, but I just wanted to always shout out my hood. But also to say to you all how thankful I am for you for making space for me. not just in, not just in our revolution in these meetings, but also I know so many of you, Carroll, I'm thinking about Alfred, Mark, Dr. Vetsky. I see so many people. I know Jovanka was on here, Russell, Pamela Price, Eduardo, I see you, like Justine. There's so many people here who have had meetings and coffees with me outside of this space. And that is so critical. And it is so important. And I'm so thankful for it. And I have to just use my time to say that. As we are in this really pivotal moment in history in our town, I just think about the progressives like you who have set the tone for me to be here. I am not the mayor of Pinole yet. I actually will be mayor in 2023, God willing. What I am is a council member, a progressive council member who's gotten to be elected in Pinole with the highest number of votes in Pinole's history of any candidate. That happened because of a lot of people on this call right now. But most importantly, I think what I am so proud about the work that we're doing in Pinole is that we are setting a new culture. Some of you talked about the error of but in Pinole, in Richmond. Well, we had an error of Swearingen and some other folks who were very harmful, not only in rhetoric, but really in terms of bringing about a culture in Pinole that allowed us to look around and see things happening and not take action about them. That a culture that said that we could be next door to a city like Richmond or a city like San Pablo or a city like Hercules and not work with those cities to think about the new communities coming up and make sure that those voices were also heard. And so as a council member now, I get the added luxury of not just being a progressive voice, but being able to speak on so many stories that have been here in Pinole that frankly need to be acknowledged, they need to be recognized, and they also need to be amplified, especially when they're issues that are important to them. I want to invite everyone this Tuesday night, it's on Zoom, to our Pinole City Council meeting, where I will be inducted as the Mayor Pro Tempore. What does that mean? Well, it's basically a vice mayor role. It says that I'm set in line to become mayor at this time next year. So right now, on Tuesday, I'll be Mayor Pro Tem. At this time, around this time next year, I'll be inducted as Mayor of Pinole. I'll be the youngest mayor in Pinole's history. I'll be the first Black mayor in Pinole's history. I'll be the first openly out mayor in Pinole's history. And those are important. Of course, representation is always important. It's always great to talk about those things. But here's what I really want and want to ask of you. I want to continue to have these conversations. I want to have these kind of conversations that allow us to see Pinole in conversation with the East Bay and the progressive policies that many elected officials before me spoke about. And again, I honor people like Jovanka and Gayle because they really have set the tone on how to transform roles of progressive politics and activism into an elected role. And it's really important for folks like myself. As I'm 28, I know I have a long way to go. I have so much growth to do. And I really want to ask you all to hold me accountable to continue that growth, but to make sure that we are building a movement beyond just me. Next year, we have 3 open seats on the Pinole City Council, 3 open seats. Now, there are incumbents who are likely going to run, and there are probably going to be new voices in Pinole, hopefully, that will run, given how much has been changing in our city. And we need you to be here with us. I need you to be here with us because, frankly, whatever happens next November, of course, nationally, statewide, those are important, but locally, that will dictate how I can take action as a mayor in my own city. And what I'll tell you is there are definitely forces going against what we're building in my city. And I need you all to help me help my city by continuing this work, continuing your organizing, but also continuing to be the voice for progressive politics, not just in Contra Costa County, not just in Alameda County, but across California. So again, I just want to invite you all to join us on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Where our swearing-in ceremony is. I want to also say that we've done a couple of things that I'm really proud of in Pinole this year and have led, including the funding and the pitch start to our climate action plan. We actually 10 years ago started our sustainability element in Pinole, and we didn't create any goals or metrics or anything. We started the work, but somehow didn't continue it. So now we are actually putting in steps to have a climate action plan in Pinole. We are impacted by sea level rise. We are impacted by dirty air. We certainly are impacted by all of the things that the climate crisis is bringing to us. And it's important locally for us to focus on a climate action plan that not only protects our environment, but sets us up to work with other jurisdictions across Contra Costa County and even the state to meet our climate goals. I'm very proud to also have initiated and started up, and of course our council supported it, but we did a COVID-19 small business assistance program. There are a lot of small businesses in Pinole. Many of those small businesses are owned by people of color. And it was very important in the world of COVID, right, in the era of COVID, that we support people who are not only holding up, right, a small business, but also bringing a lot of culture to Pinole. And the importance of that value needs to be seen, not only just by saying, we've got your back, but it does take government to say, we want you here and we want you to stay here. We're also growing in Pinole. If you know anyone who's looking for a job and you want to come to Pinole, we need good talent. We need great people. We've increased staffing for our public works department. We've now hired a new community services director, which is really great, but we're also looking for new staff. So again, go to our City of Pinole website. If you're looking for anyone, we would love to have you. If you know progressives,
they work very well.
Have that culture bringing. I see you, Chris. Hi. We are absolutely also one last thing.
They work great.
Hi, Chris.
Years ago.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying something to me. I was just going to bring this last point is, one of the things I am just so proud about in Pinole right now is that we are focused on young people. I am focused on young people and bringing in young people into our system. It is into our activism system, not the justice system. It is imperative that we invest in young people. And that doesn't just have to be in politics. That means in public works. That means in arts and culture. That means in STEM fields, right? And if we do not do that work right now, we are not going to hold our city sustainable in the long run, right? It is because of my father's decision to come to Pinole, move to Pinole, that I even decided to run, right? But we've got to continue that momentum, and we've got to create a system where young people can find a place, not just on the activism front, but also in the halls of city government, especially in the halls of city government, because those are the decisions, the points that are sometimes more impactful to regular everyday people than what's happening in Congress and DC. And so I'm just really proud that we're taking steps to really start an engagement program, specifically to engage young people, not just in our decisions around policy in City Hall, but also on the day-to-day of what goes on in our public works and our recreation and other aspects. So we've got a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do, but I just, again, wanted to use this time more so to say thank you to you all for getting me here. And I can't say it enough how honored and humbled I have been through our revolution and the support that the folks in this call have given me. And I just, yes, that's all I have to say, Carol. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. We're really glad you were able to make it.
Yeah.
And we have time probably for like one question. We're so far behind, and
no
we want to
problem.
give everybody a chance to talk. Igor.
Hey, Devin, I promise this will be the last of my softball questions this evening. Thank you so much for your leadership this past Friday at the Marin Clean Energy Board, where Devin was instrumental to getting to a yes on a resolution in support of what OREB has already signed on to, along with 500 plus other organizations to save California solar. What other regional efforts have you been leading the way with at Marin Clean Energy and other environmental regional collaboratives?
Absolutely. And thank you, Igor, for your activism around solar storage and just the movement for a clean energy environment. You are truly leading at a state level and national level on this work. So a couple things. So we have funded, I believe, over at this point, like $500,000 in electric vehicle and solar developments in our city. So first and foremost, my biggest thing as a council member was, where are we in terms of this clean economy that we need to build, and how do we take the next step forward? Regionally, we've been working with the we have been working with the Conservation and Planning Department, I believe it is, in the county, to focus around a little bit more about how can we actually do more sustainability efforts and connect the dots on specifically on like recycled water. We have a wastewater treatment plant. So how can we connect the dots of like upgrading that wastewater treatment plant, making sure that we can bring more projects into Pinole, and then also hire locally. Igor, I think you mentioned this too, but for those of you who don't know, by virtue of my representation on the city council, I serve on the MCE Clean Energy Board of Directors. MCE is essentially an electricity provider, and what they do is they generate electricity and provide that as a tool for folks, and they do oftentimes do it with a cleaner mission, although I know some folks have some critiques around it, and we're trying to push them forward, but they've been doing a really good job at really developing and promoting energy democracy. One of the things I'm most proud about is developing and expanding the MCE Cares program, which essentially is a relief program for those who have been dealing with high utility costs during the pandemic and weren't able to afford it. We actually expanded that program this year and provided more customers with relief. I think about 28,000 people across MCE's member communities have benefited from the MCE Cares program, and about 435 people have benefited specifically in Pinole. And we're really, really proud about that, because for so long, again, oftentimes Pinoleans aren't referred to when people say who needs help. I understand that there's a lot of people who need help, but it's important that we don't overlook people in Pinole who are obviously, giving back to our community, making sure they are doing the best they can to hold their heads up above water. And to see that program benefit 400 people in Pinole was absolutely moving. So I have so much more that I want to do this next year. And because of my role as Mayor Pro Tem, my hope is to develop more relationships with other folks across West Contra Costa County, but also Contra Costa County, to develop more of our models. I think we've got to work together, but specifically on broadband. Like, wireless access is certainly a climate issue. When the Texas event happened, a lot of people didn't have access to Wi-Fi. What did that mean? Well, that means a lot of the information that was being disseminated, they didn't get access to that information because, or either got it late or didn't get access at all, simply because they didn't have access to, again, Wi-Fi and broadband. We've got to do that on a regional level, and it's certainly a part of my goal to not only focus in Pinole around wireless, broadband internet. It's also something that we've got to work with cities like Richmond and San Pablo, and again, fully the county, to do something like that, not only for the money piece, but also for the implementation of it and the development, because we've got to go underground to do those kind of things. And we're gonna have to do that as a community, a regional community, not just as a city.
Okay, Devin, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so good to hear from you.
Absolutely, anytime. I'm gonna put my email in the chat box, but thank you all so much for having me.
Okay, we're gonna move on. So one of our speakers is not here, Riley Brand. So I'm not sure if he's going to be here or not. So we have, let's see, we have Kelsey Presnell, who's going to speak about Pamela's campaign. Vitsky Medina is going to talk about frontline catalysts. And we've gotten joined by Elisa Castro, who Mike Hutchinson mentioned, and we can give her as the last person 2 minutes before we go into our music and end the event. She's smiling about that. Okay, so I guess what we'll do now, Kelsey, are you ready?
Kelsey is in another meeting. So you actually
we've got
have me.
Pamela Price in person. Welcome, Pamela.
Hi, Kelsey's running another meeting right now. So
okay.
I've actually been with you for a while. And so I know we're behind schedule. I'll just take a minute and say it's wonderful that to see the roundup from people who we have supported, who we've elected, who are making a difference. And that's, you guys should feel great about that, because that's what matters, is having people in positions of power. If nothing else, in my campaign, it has exposed that the leadership of this county is pretty thoroughly corrupt and not at all engaged in protecting the rights of the people of the county. And so that's, I heard Carroll Fife speak. I've listened to it. It's a really great lineup, and it shows the power of electing progressive, community-based folks that are there and are willing to take the battles inside the halls of power. So briefly, I can say our campaign is going great. I'm really excited about it. Yes, Kelsey is awesome. She's holding it down in South County, and we know from our last campaign that last time it was a challenge for us to have a presence in the southern part of the county, but now we're doing that. We got our office open in Fremont, and Kelsey is coordinating a walk every weekend. They've finished a number of precincts down there, and we're planning probably in January, we will have a blitz in the south part of the county. So we're going to hopefully invite everybody. Let's go to Fremont and support Kelsey. We are exposing a lot of corruption in Alameda County, both with respect to the DA's office, the sheriff's department, and the Board of Supervisors. The recent selection. Say again. The recent selection of Dave Brown is very suspect. He does not live in this county, and yet he was appointed to represent an entire district of the county. It's crazy. And they did that with absolute impunity because they know that the DA is not going to do anything to enforce the law. And so this month for us we've named it Police Accountability Month, and as a result, we're starting to see the attacks coming from the police. They're leaving Chesa and coming over here. We got all these trolls that showed up on my Twitter account. I said, "Oh, we triggered the trolls." They realized that there's danger in Alameda County, and so that is happening. And we expect January for us is going to be Public Accountability Month, and we're going to take on some of the challenges that the DA should have been taking on, because this seat is at the heart of corruption in Alameda County. And so we really will have a far-reaching impact once we're able to take office. And I do look forward to coming back myself after a year and giving the 1-year report on how things have gone. And so thank you all so much for everything you're doing. Please help us on social media. Like I say, the trolls are coming alive. We appreciate you guys tabling for us, walking for us. I was walking in Berkeley today. We had 4 teams out this afternoon. So we've been walking there around the Rose Garden area, and we finished a bunch of precincts over there. And the Oakland office is going to have office hours opening up in January, and we're really excited about moving forward. So that's my report.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'd just like to mention that Friday, OREB went to the downtown Oakland market, and yesterday we were at the Alameda market.
Yay, thank you
Anyway,
so much.
so it's starting to get regular.
And I will be joining you. I'm
Yeah,
looking
we're
forward to
so
hitting.
excited about having you win.
It's gonna be great. We got a lot of work to do. It's been a lot of decades of folks not being accountable and not following the law and thinking that they are above the law. So we got a lot to reverse. But I mean, you all have been pushing since 2016. And so you're starting to see, I can see the fruits of your labor. So I'm really excited about that. Tonight is really good. It shows a lot of movement. So that's great.
Yeah. Would somebody like to ask Pam a question? Preferably about how you can support her campaign? I'm supposed to see every hand up. Sherry.
I know. Sherry's waving. You know, she raised her hand. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Pamela. We are all just so delighted that you are running such a great campaign this year. How are you going to go after the endorsements of the ingrained conservative Democratic groups? We know that the people want this kind of change, but just like we have heard from everybody else, that there's still this ingrained part of the party that is so conservative. So just a couple minutes on how you're going to kind of overcome that for your victory.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the party, it's labor in many quarters as well. As you know, we've had battles around trying to move the party forward, and labor has not always been our ally or our friend in it, even though we support labor, you know, in everything that they do and every battle that they fight, right? And we all really, you know, so we know that there is a disconnect between the people, just like the workers and the leadership. And yes, the Democratic Party establishment is well entrenched, well financed, and quite hostile to change. And we see that coming out as well. What we did early on was to reach out to every leader in the Democratic clubs, and ask them to take a position early. Some did. We were endorsed by many members, many presidents of the different Democratic clubs. We're working closely to hopefully get the Wellstone Democratic Club endorsement, which we see as a major opportunity for us. And if you have not joined Wellstone, please do so this week. There is a chat there. Deadline for the endorsement is to be able to vote in the endorsement is this week. The endorsement won't be till February, but you have to be a member like in the next week to be able to vote. Also, we've been reaching out to individual labor unions and asking them to please consider, you know, making an independent assessment of the race and an independent evaluation of the impact of this office on their members without regard to what the building trades might say or what positions, you know, certain folks might have about criminal justice, because really their members and the workers are the ones that are impacted by these draconian, barbaric criminal justice policies that we have. So that's our strategy, is to just keep reaching out to the workers, to the chapter presidents, to individual chapters, as well as the clubs. We also advised every Democratic club in the last week. My club advised every Democratic club that my club and the Central Committee has passed a resolution calling on Rob Bonta to investigate the DA's office for the political corruption that we have seen exist. And it is so deep. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg. So if you haven't signed our petition on change.org, please go there, do that. We're hoping that Rob Bonta will do the right thing. We're holding our breath. Well, I should say, we're not holding our breath. We're not holding our breath, but we are saying you need to investigate this. And one of the establishment candidate in this race who has been endorsed and is being funded by Nancy O'Malley. He is part of the corruption, and we're highlighting that. And we've asked every Democratic club, when you have a candidate endorsement debate or a forum, you need to ask the question of each candidate, what are you going to do to make sure that this type of corruption does not occur or continue in the DA's office? Thank you.
Okay, who would like to make a comment or ask a question? We'll be putting things in our newsletter, opportunities to go out and table and canvas and other things with Pamela. So be sure to read the newsletters, you guys. You look in your spam account and see if they're there. Okay, Pamela, I'm so thrilled that you came.
Yes, I'm glad I was able to make it. I try every month. So thank you all. I really appreciate everything you're doing. It's boots on the ground. That's how we're going to win.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to hear now from OREB member and author of the Green New Deal for the Bay Area, Vitsky Medina, who's going to talk about frontline catalysts. Go for it.
Hey, Carol. Sorry that I just interrupted you, Pamela. I accidentally unmuted myself and my son came running up to me, I think half naked. So that must have been funny for some people. Anyway, let me see if I can share my screen. Oh, it seems like I can. Oh, here. Okay. Participants. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, everyone. Sorry, it's a little late, so I'll try and keep it short. I think I kind of planned for about 10 minutes, but I'll try to talk fast so that maybe I can get through my presentation a little bit shorter amount of time. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to have a chance to present our work to you. I first want to thank all the previous speakers for their wonderful presentations. The Bay Area is really lucky with elected officials like yourself, and our Revolution East Bay. We are very proud that we have helped elect you. Before presenting our work on Frontline Catalyst, I do want to acknowledge that we are on Ohlone land. I'm showing a slide here that we always start with our students every day. So about Frontline Catalysts, we are Frontline Catalysts. We are a women-led organization founded by 3 women. I think both of them are on this call as well. So I'm very happy about that. Frontline Catalyst aims to create opportunities to lift up the voices of youth to lead the transformative climate justice movement. Our focus is on youth from frontline communities most impacted by climate change, because these are the young people that actually carry the legitimacy of lived experience. And their work spotlights climate change impacts as well as social, racial, and environmental justice. So Frontline Catalyst was born from 3 women, Xochitl Cortez, Nikki Donis, and myself. We each bring, our own backgrounds, our own skills and experiences to Frontline Catalysts. But our most important team members are the youth who we collaborate with, along with our school and community partnerships. They are the real Frontline Catalysts. This year, we developed the first ever climate justice leadership development program that is grounded in ethnic studies. And we have done this in partnership with the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University. We offer our program at no cost to Title I schools, public schools in frontline communities. Title I schools have large concentrations of low income and immigrant students. And it is time that we actually need transformative climate schools, starting with Title I schools in frontline communities. Our program started this year with the United for Success Academy, which is a public middle school in East Oakland. One of our co-founders, Xochitl Cortez, who is also our executive director, she actually went to school there. So for her, it's like a cycle that kind of, comes back together. Low-income communities of color, such as East Oakland, are the ground zero of climate change. These are the communities that live on the boundaries of toxic waste disposal sites, of hotspots of contaminated water, soil, and air pollution, as well as active or abandoned industrial facilities. And also the youth in these communities experience educational inequities, denying them the resources and the skills to thrive. So we, with Frontline Catalyst, we provide a year-round elective and after-school program that we started this year with United for Success Academy. And it has so far been a wonderful experience working directly with teachers and students. Our climate justice leadership program consists of 3 pillars: engage, explore, and empower, that weave together a dynamic series of culturally relevant modules. And these modules provide hands-on discovery, service learning, community science projects, relationship building, civic engagement, 21st century skills, and other leadership development activities. Youth equipped with the skills through our program will be empowered to create climate justice actions and solutions. They introduce climate-related initiatives to benefit their community, which is paramount to fighting climate justice. Our program engages youth in a culturally relevant and responsive format, and we aim to create a safe youth development space to allow students to critically reflect and act through a message of hope, sustainability, and resilience. So our climate justice leadership development program is grounded in ethnic studies. Why ethnic studies? This year, California has become the first state to require ethnic studies for high school graduation. This is the first mandate of its kind to ensure that K through 12 students are taught about ethnic and racial groups whose history and traditions have been traditionally overlooked and who are at the forefront of experiencing the negative impacts of climate change and environmental injustices. We work closely with the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University to ensure that our climate justice leadership program is grounded in ethnic studies through an environmental equity lens. So these are photographs of some of our wonderful children in our program to provide students and schools access to local knowledge and resources. We build strategic partnerships with community groups, and one of our key community partners for our program in East Oakland is Peralta Hacienda Historic Park. Students in our elective and after-school programs visit the park several times a week to participate in various hands-on activities. We also partnered with Youth versus Apocalypse, who invited our students to the San Francisco climate strike that took place in September. And our students were the youngest activists in a large crowd that came together. Youth leaders from Youth versus Apocalypse now join our pilot program every Tuesday to share their experiences and skills with our students. They have recently also set up a Youth versus Apocalypse lunch club at the school so that other students outside of our elective program and after school program can also join these activities. Another wonderful partner is Chabot Space and Science Center, who invited our students for their official reopening earlier this November. In one of the pictures here, you can see two of our students next to Mia Bonta. Our students were asked to build their own planets, which you can see on the left of the slide, that became the art exhibit at the entrance of the center. Our students were there during the opening ceremony to press local elected leaders on the importance of youth voices in the climate justice movement. So much, exploration. So actually our students just celebrated the finalizing of the first pillar of our program. So here you can see one group of who is part of our elective program. We have about 26 students part of our elective program, all sixth graders. And here's a part of a group of our students celebrating the graduating their first pillar. So we have recently started with the second pillar of our program, which is really focusing on community science and service learning projects. And this month, our first community science module looks at lead contamination in East Oakland. Lead contamination in soil and water is a crisis in East Oakland, just as it is a crisis in Flint, Michigan. And much of this contamination has been caused by lead-based paint in old buildings and homes. And during this upcoming module, our students are eco-detectives who will test the lead contamination in soil in and around their school, the park, as well as their homes. And as part of these exploration modules, we will not only focus on lead in soil, but we'll also focus on water, air, and energy. Our students will not only explore these environmental factors, but also work together with community partners on how we can collectively address these challenges and injustices in their communities. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's late. I know everybody is probably hungry, but we so appreciate the chance of sharing our work with you all. We are excited to to partner with other schools. We have a number of schools who have already expressed their interest in working with us. It's only the three of us for now, so we do look for support so we can expand our organization and move into other schools and integrate our program there as well. Thank you again, and if you have any questions or feedback or ideas, we would love to hear from you.
Wow, I'm very impressed. I had no idea that it was that involved. You know, you've really done some amazing work.
Yeah, we're there every week every day of the week. We're there every morning, third period for 50 minutes, and then every afternoon from 3:30 to 6, and then every Wednesday from 1:30 to 6. So we're really, we're really committed. It's a labor of love still for all three of us. It's hard. One of our founding members is going through a very challenging health journey. She just found out she has breast cancer. So we have our challenges, but we so believe in this that, we're going to make this a success. So.
Well, all right. Would anybody like to ask a question about this or make a comment?
Hi, it's Gordon. And I just want to say you're absolutely awesome. And I would really like you to contact me. I think that I know a number of people on school boards in Contra Costa, and I think they'd be really interested in your presentation.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you, Nadine. I'll definitely do that.
All right.
Gordon, I saw your hand up as well.
Yes, up until around 30, 40 years ago, tetraethyl lead was used as anti-knock compound in gasoline. And there's some guys that did an assessment of soil near the Nimitz Freeway, I guess it's the 80 or the 880, and they found high soil levels of lead. And it's simply due to automotive exhaust getting into the soil.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yield.
Thank you, Gordon. Laura, I saw your hand is up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And I was going to mention also I'm in Contra Costa County, and if you need contacts here, either myself or Nadine, it sounds like Nadine knows just as many people as I do, but would love to have this program happen in Concord and Contra Costa.
All right, thank you. I'll get in touch. We'll get in touch with both of you.
That'd be great.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Witzke? Okay, then moving right along. Thank you so much. I know we've been trying to have you do this for a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nikki and Sochi are here too. I know they're quiet, but they're amazing. They're here. I just want to shout out to you.
All right. Okay, so our final guest, I don't believe has shown up. Maybe somebody replaced him. I don't know. Is there anybody here from the nurses organization that was going to speak? Okay, then I guess that didn't happen.
Carol, can we just say how important it is to support AB 1400, which is the.
You want to say something? And I just want to say that that gets voted on, I believe, in January. And several of us from our Revolution East Bay are going to go up and visit people in their offices and talk to them. And I think there's going to be a lot of January activity.
Okay.
And so maybe we can have somebody come on our next meeting, which is January 2nd.
Nadine, did you want to add something?
Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, I give Nadine, did you want to say something about the bill?
Well, It's a priority and for the nurses, and there's 3 and very important dates. And Carol, if I can have your address, I was just in a meeting today, and so I did a lot of copying of documents, and I'll be happy to send them to you for you to forward out.
Okay. And, one other thing is, we have this series of town halls, and I'm missing the date again. What's the date, Jake?
January 15th.
Okay, January 15th, we're having a town hall on healthcare. And do you want to talk about that for a sec, Jake?
Yeah, it's going to be the Healthcare Justice Town Hall. So we're going to start with some history. We have Dr. Bill, I keep forgetting how to say his last name. Sherry, what is it? Koenig, yeah. He's going to be talking about some of the history of CalCare in California, maybe mostly some of the recent history. Then we're going to get some more speakers to talk about the previous history, because we've been trying to do this in California for about 25 years now. And there's always shenanigans that happens. And so we want to cover all that stuff so everyone can get prepared for the crap that we're about to fight soon. And so we want to get everybody prepared for that fight.
And this is going to take political. We heard from all these wonderful speakers about how we have been able to change because of the political will in this room. And we're not going to get healthcare in California unless we just push all of our elected officials, because the people on the other side, like all of the other fights that we've fought, and from the people you heard of, all have the money on the other side. So we're going to have to just really, AB 1400 has to pass in January for this to go forward. And so we're going to just
very harsh fight. So we can't be scared about knocking some teeth in and heads together, because that's what's going to happen. Because our opposition isn't scared about that either. And we've seen over and over how much they'll lie, just straight up lie about what's going on. So we need to be able to hit back as hard as we can in organized fashion. And we have to do that by actually working together and figuring out our strategy and tactics and where we're supposed to do all this stuff at. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. And the healthcare justice town hall is going to help start some of that. And then hopefully we'll keep going from there.
Another possible speaker for the town hall is Dan Hodges. I don't know how many of you know him, but he's been involved in trying to get healthcare in California for forever, really. And Nadine, I just put my address down. You said you wanted to send me something. Okay, anything else?
And Carol, maybe they don't even know that it actually did pass at one point and was vetoed. Conveniently.
Yeah, didn't 4 years ago or something like that. We were all, or 3 years ago, we were all numerous times.
There was AB 562. Jerry Brown didn't want to get involved with it, so he told Anthony Rendon, the Speaker of the Assembly, to kill it. Anthony Rendon basically fell on his sword for Jerry Brown and killed 562. AB 1400 has to re-clear the Assembly in January, then it will go over to the Senate for, they'll do the finalization, we hope. I'd like to add something, and that puts this into perspective. The health insurance industry is waging a successful campaign to destroy Medicare, and the tool they're using is the Medicare Advantage plans. Half the people in the country, almost half the people on Medicare, are now shifting over to Advantage. Yes. And there are many, many problems. I can post a link in the chat, but there are many problems with Medicare Advantage. But the big one, and the open enrollment period, I believe, ends on December 7th. Which happens to be Pearl Harbor Day. It's a good day for this to be going on. They full court press of Medicare Advantage plan advertising. You can't get away from it anywhere on television. And it sounds too good to be true. We got medical, we got dental, we got hearing. Well, it is too good to be true, and they're going to come back round and bite you at some point in the future. So keep that in mind. If you're affected by this, stay on conventional Medicare and Medigap insurance. Yield. Thank you for your time.
Okay, does that finish what we want to say on that, or were you finished, Sherry? Or you're muted.
Thank you, Carol. I just wanted to just emphasize how important this fight is for so many people in California.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for the time.
Okay, I think that completes a lot of our thing. Then we have two more things. One is Jake's going to do a quick wrap up.
Well, before that, we have Elise Castro's here. So
Oh, I forgot Elise. Elise.
I wasn't going to let you forget. I'll see if I can do the county
Oh,
superintendent
okay,
of schools
go
in 2
for it.
minutes.
We don't know you, at least I don't, but we're
Okay.
happy
So
to have you.
for those of you who don't know me, I'm Elise Castro. I have been a principal of alternative public high schools for about 20 years, mostly in Alameda County. And I currently run the county and alternative schools in San Francisco County. County superintendent, forget everything you know about regular school district superintendents. It's a totally separate job. It's actually a constitutional officer like the county clerk. And there are 3 things you should be able to expect from your county superintendent. Your county superintendent approves the plans and budgets of all of your local school districts. So in Alameda County, that's 18 local school districts. And that's what Mike was mentioning earlier, where there's a real difference of opinion about whether or not a budget should be approved and whether the local district should have control over that. The next thing you should ask from your county superintendent is that they control a chunk of money. In the case of the Alameda County superintendent, it's $25 million that's explicitly for the purpose of supporting the school districts, helping the school districts to meet the needs and to close the service gaps. And then the last thing the county superintendent does is they actually run the schools for the kids who have been expelled or who are in detention or juvenile hall. And right now, we are living through a real moment of juvenile justice reform. And often what's happening for our kids in juvenile hall especially is deeply, deeply inadequate. This is a last chance to remove a student from the prison pipeline and to return them. If we don't get them by age 18, they're very likely to statistically be in the system for the rest of their lives at a cost of about $5 million per young person, not to mention the cost to the moral fiber of our society. So those are the 3 things you should be able to ask from your county superintendent of schools. If you live in Contra Costa County, your county superintendent is a woman named Lynn Mackey. She's pretty delightful. She has a really interesting personal story, and she brings that to life supporting kids. If you live in Alameda County, you have a county superintendent who doesn't do much. I wasn't here at the beginning of the meeting when Mike talked a little bit about the current issue with Oakland. So I just want to sort of put out there that the county superintendent does have a legal responsibility under Ed Code to approve the budgets. And there are some very strict guidelines, like audit guidelines. They don't get you just make up their opinion about whether they approve it or not. But the county superintendent then has a list of like 9 different remedies that they can choose from. And in this case, the Alameda County superintendent has chosen some very punitive remedies that really threaten the local control that Oakland has been working so hard to get back. So that's kind of the situation. And, if you want to support me as a county superintendent, it's because I believe in teachers. I believe in letting the districts do what they're trying to do for kids as long as they can make payroll, focus on the kids who need it most, and driving that $25 million into full service community schools, healthcare services, intensive special education services that actually widen the circle of who public schools work for systematically. And I'm also a school finance geek.
Elise, could you put your contact information in the chat, please?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, guys, this has been one long meeting. And, You know, we endorsed these people that were our first speakers, and we voted for them and we campaigned for them. And I'm thrilled. We're about to start the cycle again to bring in some more really strong progressives. So, you know, let's keep it up, you know? Okay, so I have nothing else to say. Jake's gonna do a quick wrap up, and then Sudia is going to sing some nice labor songs, or we'll find out. Okay, love you all. Jake, it's yours.
Hi, Jake.
What's up, everyone? So for tonight, what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna start trying an after meeting email, probably gonna go out tomorrow, and it's gonna get the links and any action items that we know you need for this week or this month. And I'm gonna go ahead and say a couple of them right now. We're talking about Mike Hutchinson's change.org petition. Obviously, we're also talking about Pamela Price, and we're talking about AB 1400, which is going to be coming up, and we're talking about Weedsky's Green New Deal for the Bay Area. We're going to be talking about Alyssa Castro and her fight for the county superintendent. And for everyone else that spoke, please email us info@ourrevolutioneastbay.org and let us know what other action items you think are necessary for this email. We're going to send them out tomorrow afternoon-ish. And
I'll probably set it to go out early Tuesday morning.
okay, Tuesday morning, that'll work too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you guys look out for that email and forward it around to your other groups and your friends that are interested, but not, really keeping up with what's going on. And we're also going to have start promoting the YouTube and the Facebook videos more often, so that you can pass them around to friends and say, hey, you weren't at the meeting, just watch it here. It's really good. And we're going to start chopping up the videos too, so that people can see each of the sections much more easily and share them when needed. So that's it. Thanks for coming.
Okay. You ready? So I always think of what would be the most appropriate songs for either what the meeting was about or what we need to work with. So today,